everyone, and welcome to Molehill Mountain, episode 192. I am Andrew Eisen, and I have absolutely nothing interesting to say. But that's not going to stop me from doing a podcast. So, let's talk about spiders. Because I've got them in my apartment. I keep evicting them, but they keep coming back. And you might think it's a different one, but I think I'm starting to recognize some of these little guys. I'm like, don't I know you? Haven't I thrown you out before? And I don't mind spiders. Spiders make webs, and webs are cool. Unless you walk into one, then it's really not cool. It's like, I just can't get it off my face. But still, they're not paying rent. And in this time of financial uncertainty, I don't need freeloaders in my house. Yesterday, I set a record, I think, personal record, for evicting 5 spiders in a 24-hour period. 4 of the same kind, which I actually don't recognize. I don't know what kind of spider it is. Small, it's got blue highlights. And another really big daddy longlegs looking son of a gun. I don't think it was a daddy longleg, but because its body was way too big. But that style of spidey. I don't know. I don't know if I'm just really handsome to spiders, or if I've got a lot of insects in my house, or I'm very charming. I don't know why I have so many spiders in here. Although I have found a couple dead ones by the baseboards. I don't know why my baseboards are so deadly. But I hope it's not because I have a bunch of insects in my house. My theory is that spiders like to be indoors, and they know that most people will squish them, but if they come in here, the worst that happens, I catch you, I throw you outside. And they're like, better to be scooped up and thrown out than to be squished. So, spiders are smart. Of course, I don't know what the spider situation is in any of the other apartments in this unit, so maybe we're all being inundated with spideys. Or maybe it's just me. Or maybe I have less than most. I have no idea. Let's see, Jordan says, hi, I got a mile to walk home and I've been all over town today. My feet are tired and I'm exhausted. Keep me entertained and awake. I will with my dull, low, monotonous voice, I'll try to keep you awake. W3 says, I'll take spider any day over cockroaches. Disgusting little things. Oh yeah, for as nonchalant as I am about spiders don't bug me in the least. Don't need one crawling up my nose, but if I see one on the wall, I'm not gonna, throw a shoe at it or anything. I'm just gonna, throw it outside. Cockroaches, I will kill them. I will kill them dead. Wood roaches, sewer roaches, any roach. I don't like roaches. Roaches squick me out. Some people are squicked out by spiders. I'm not. But that doesn't mean I look down at people who are squicked out by spiders, because frankly I'm squicked out by cockroaches. Those things are gross. Another animal that some people have a big problem with? Bees. I got no beef with bees. I like bees. Bees are cool. Probably because I've never been stung by a bee. It's why I don't mind bees. I mind wasps, because I've been hit by a wasp. A couple times. Hurts. So I don't like wasps. Which is funny, because I've been bitten by spiders before. I still don't really mind spiders. And I have 2 spiders, or maybe one ambitious one, that's making webs on my car, which isn't moving very much right now. Loves building a web on the door by the rear view mirror. On both sides of the car. I don't know if there's spiders living on opposite sides of my car behind the mirror, or if there's just one who's traveling back and forth. Matthew says, going to say, you've never been stung. Bees are bad, worse than spiders. Yeah, my sister's been stung twice that I know of. Both times near a pool. One because she stepped on a bee, and the other one because the bee was a jerk. She was swimming in the pool. She came out. Bee just landed on her neck and stung her right in the neck. And it hurt because I remember her yelling. But bees have never bothered me none. They've never stung me. And I like bees. I find them kind of interesting, so I watch them occasionally. And they leave me alone. And while I do have some spiders in here, I have no spider bites, so they've been leaving me alone. Which is good because not like I can, request a fumigation service right now. So I'm kind of on my own with my 8-legged friends. Bees can really harm you. I mean, ER level of harm. Depending on the U in that equation, yeah. If you're allergic to bee stings, yeah, that can... It can be deadly, depending on the person. So, I have no idea if I'm allergic to bees or not. I don't think I am, because I have bad allergies. I've had the test done, and I'm just allergic to everything. Like, I have a mild allergy to pretty much everything, with a focus on pollen, dust, and pet dander. So I don't have like a real super specific allergy. I'm just allergic to stuff, which kind of sucks. But Jordan says words probably getting to outer colonies that Andrew's place offers free housing and a fun catapult trip out. Whee! So, all right. Let's talk about Perfect Dark. N64 game came out 20 years ago. Its anniversary was last week. I just did a video on it. You may have seen it. You may not have. Jordan says, first murder hornets. What's next? You touch, you die, bees. Yeah. So, I played Perfect Dark 20 years ago when I was in college. Very in college, yeah. I'm old. It was a good game. I'm not the biggest into first-person shooters. I do enjoy them. I liked the GoldenEye game. I liked Perfect Dark. I liked the Turok and Turok 2. 3 was terrible. 4 was terrible. Evolution, GameCube era. I think that was the 4th one. I didn't play that. I think in like 2005 or something they had a new one for the Xbox, and I never played that one. But so I made a video joking about Joanna Dark's, like many voiceovers for female characters, her exclamations to pain come off as a little orgasmic rather than painful, which is individually funny, but something you'll notice as a trend throughout the industry's history. And if you walk into a laser, she'll play one of her ouch voice lines. But if you just keep walking into a laser, just hold forward, she'll repeat the different voice lines over and over. And it sounds like she's having a rather good time. And I remember being 20 years old, figuring that out and giggling myself stupid. Because I was immature when I was 20 years old, and now that I'm 40, I'm still immature. I haven't grown up a bit. It's still funny. James Bond didn't have that problem. He didn't sound like he was getting off to pain. But Perfect Dark was a good game. I never got to, as probably most people watching this know, as made by Rare. It was a Nintendo second party for a long time. Then they went over to Microsoft, where they made a sequel, or actually, was it a prequel? Perfect Dark Zero. And I never played it because it was on the Xbox, so or 360, one of the two. It was on the Microsoft platform. I heard it was bad though, so I guess I didn't miss much, but I'd still kind of be interested in checking it out just to see what they did with it. But Perfect Dark was a good game, and I think it was kind of ahead of its time in many ways. It did. In fact, so ahead of its time, it may be where J.J. Abrams got the idea for overused lens flare. Jordan says we need a prequel, Imperfect Light. There you go. WA3 says, I think Perfect Dark is re-released in the Xbox One, much smoother and sharper than the original. Oh yeah, I've seen the re-release. Yeah, it certainly is. The original game, of course, was on the N64, and it would barely run without the expansion pack, which gave the N64 a whole extra 4 megs of memory to work with. We've gone from 4 megs to 8 megs. Whee! And it's like now we can run in high def, which was like 480i or something like that. Old games are funny. And it was funny trying to get this sucker to work on my current setup so that I could record some footage from it. And a mid-cool, average midday. Yeah. You know, I think Perfect Dark was the game that really sold me on the fact that I'm just not into multiplayer. Because Perfect Dark went way above and beyond accommodating single-player gamers with bots. You can have multiplayer bots in Perfect Dark, and you can customize these damn things to the nth degree. You can customize, their attitude and how aggressive they are and how they work. There are so many damn options. That game has more multiplayer options than many modern games do. It's really incredible. And I gave it the old college try, literally, because I was in college. And I think Perfect Dark is when I confirmed my suspicion that, man, multiplayer deathmatch kind of stuff, just not for me. Even because I thought, you know what, I don't like playing with other people, but maybe I could get into deathmatch if I'm just playing against the computer. Nah, just not into it. So, someone in the comments of the video I made the other day said, compared it to GoldenEye. And I believe they said Perfect Dark was better. And I, on the whole, agree. I think Perfect Dark is better than GoldenEye, except in maybe one area, and I would say pacing. Like, GoldenEye, I think, has a pretty consistent quality of levels all the way through the game. There's some high and low points, but for the most part, all 20 levels or whatever it is are pretty consistently good. There's a couple areas in Perfect Dark varies a bit more. Some levels are absolutely phenomenal, like the whole opening sequence, the infiltration and extraction of the Datadyne building. I love that. That entire sequence is one of my favorite first-person shooter sequences of any game. I really like the Chicago area, the one that's outside. I really liked the Air Force One sequence. I thought was pretty cool. I like the airport one that's before that, I think, because you have to figure out a way to go through a baggage claim, which is pretty funny. But there are a couple. I think when it got heavy into the sci-fi alien crap, it started losing me a bit. The big open snow level I didn't really care for. Pretty much any time Elvis the alien showed up, I wasn't really fond of. The Sakaar or whatever, it's not Sakaar, but the aliens, their home planet, didn't really care for. So I think GoldenEye was a little bit more even in quality, but Perfect Dark definitely trumps it in pretty much every other way. Both games, however, both have an incredible opening act. The dam and the interior facility, and then the escape out the runway. That is a hell of an opening to the game, and it's probably the best part of the game. And Perfect Dark does the same thing. Its opening sequence is probably its best sequence. Oh, the via I forget what the whole story behind it is, but that like seaside villa that you infiltrate somewhere in the game, that's a really good level in Perfect Dark 2. So yeah, May 2000. The damn game's 20 years old. Wow, man. Wow. Stuff I like is... I remember when I was a kid, grade school, I had music class, and my music teacher, Miss Kirkham, mentioned something like she'd been playing piano for 25 years. And I remember, I was probably like 11 at the time, thinking, I was like, wow, that's way longer than I've even been alive. I can't even wrap my puny child brain around that. She's been alive long enough to have done something longer than I've even been alive. That's amazing. And now I'm that old. So, old. Let's see, there's a rumor going around, says WA3, that Sega might announce a new console later this week. If that's true, I miss how full of character old consoles were. What's interesting about Sega is Sega games had this Sega-ness to it. You could just tell Sega games by looking at them. Even if you didn't know what the game was, you could look at a game and go, "Oh, that's a Dreamcast title right there. That's definitely a Sega game." It has a look to it, not even necessarily a feel. Sega games had a look to them. I would be surprised if this rumored announcement is anything other than some type of mini Saturn or mini Dreamcast or some type of retro compilation console, rather than a full new console to compete with like PS5, Xbox Series X, and whatever the new Nintendo ends up being. Matthew says, a lot of people think the announcement Sega will be bought by Microsoft. I've heard that too. Could happen. So, a couple of weeks ago, for my Sunday stream, I played Hand of Fate. Really liked it. And I got as far as the final challenge, the King of Scales? The Lizard King? So there's 12 scenarios, and this is the 12th scenario. There's a final boss after that. And I couldn't beat it. And I got frustrated, and I stopped playing it for a while. I went back to it today and gave it the old college try. Still couldn't beat it. And I'm like, man, I'm hammering on these little lizard dudes, and they are not dying. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Because my general strategy for these types of games is to get rid of the minions so that they're not breathing down my neck while I'm focusing on the boss. Well, after 2 tries, I read the flavor text for the character again, and it says the minions are invincible while the boss is alive. Oh. Okay, well that explains why I couldn't kill anything. So I played it again and beat it on the first try. Helps if you read the instructions. I'm the kind of guy who always reads the dialogue and the flavor text and all that stuff. Anytime I pick up a new item in an RPG or whatever, I always read the flavor text. And I read it. It just didn't click that was an instruction. That was literally telling me, focus on the boss because you can't kill the minions, they're invincible. Because it reads like, the boss's might inspires his followers to attack and be invincible. It came off as flavor text. It did not click as an actual instruction. But once I realized that the minions are invincible, you have to focus on the boss, I got it. And then you have to fight against the dealer, and I tried that once, and I made it. Looks like it's going to be fight all of the first tier bosses, then the second tier bosses, then the third tier and the fourth tier, and then probably him or something like that. I made it to the third tier, so I'm pretty confident that's what the pattern's going to be. and died. That's a lot of dudes to get through, especially if you're really unlucky with the card draws and get some really bad curses and enter the damn thing with only like 40 health or something like that. So I do like the game though. That is a fun game, and I look forward to checking out Hand of Fate 2 at some point, because quite enjoyed it. Hey, you know what else looks pretty cool? Weeks before that, I played Subnautica, which is a survival game. You're adrift on the ocean, and you have to swim around and get resources to build stuff. There's a game that's hitting early access soon, if it hasn't hit early access already, and it's called something like Shipbreaker. And the premise of this one is you are a dude who is hired to bust apart decommissioned or abandoned spaceships, literally cut them up into pieces and sell the parts as salvage and any other salvageable stuff like the reactor and whatnot. And so you wander around with a laser torch and you chop up ships into pieces and try not to get killed in the vacuum of outer space by hitting a fuel line or something. That looks pretty cool. I'll be interested in following the development of that one and checking. I'm not an early access kind of guy, but when that one hits, if that one ever goes retail, I'll definitely be interested in checking it out. So, let's see what else. So, Mortal Kombat 11? I think it's 11. Mortal Kombat 11 had its Aftermath DLC, which is kind of funny. I was talking about this a couple weeks ago. They seem to have not thought through the pricing too well. I mean, maybe it worked out for them in the end, but myself, and if the internet is to be believed, a bunch of other people looked at the pricing and went, eh? Because the Aftermath DLC by itself, I think, is like $40. And all it includes is the characters and the story, which is apparently only like 2 or 3 hours long. All of the new stages and the new friendships, all of those are all free updates. So that's asking a lot for $40, especially when you can get the whole enchilada for $60. So if you've been with Mortal Kombat from the beginning, you might be a bit peeved. So, hey, Suzanne, haven't seen you in a while. Hope you're well. JFK, you're alive! Says, did you grab I'm sure you've never heard that joke before. Did you grab a copy of Xenoblade Definitive Edition? No, but I plan to at some point. I'm just not in a position to be spending money frivolously right now, so... Pardon me. So, it's certainly on my wish list. I'll pick it up I'll definitely be picking it up at some point, because I never got through Xenoblade Chronicles, and it's been years, so I figured may as well buy the definitive edition and start over, Also, from what I understand, they've really streamlined the menuing system in that one, because, ooh, doggy. Xenoblade Chronicles, as lovely as that game is, it's got some dense, complicated menus that are a bit of a pain to navigate. Hey, Otritsu, hello. Tritsu says it's a full price game, not likely to get until it goes. That's also true. It's currently, it's $60, and I don't pay $60 for games, so I would be waiting anyway. But looking at my crystal ball, the prognostication is I'm probably going to be waiting a while, but that's okay because I've got a giant backlog of unplayed games. I calculated out that if I do if I just keep doing Sunday streams and I play a new game every weekend, I have enough games in my backlog to keep me occupied for 9.5 years. granted, the majority of them are small little indie games that I got through charity bundles and stuff, so probably stuff I'm never going to play, but that's alright. Matthew says, isn't it like an 80-hour game? It's gotta be. I played it for 30-some hours, and I talked to someone about it, and they said, oh, God, yeah, you're barely a third of the way through the game. Not even close. I'm like, okay. So, good quarantine game? Yeah, I'm still working through the post game of Dragon Quest XI, which actually I haven't played in a couple of weeks because I've been busy with other things. So there's that. Anyway, what I wanted to talk about briefly was the friendships in Mortal Kombat, because I checked them out on ye old internet, and I think they are undeniably cute, and many of them are ridiculously clever. But an issue I've always kind of had with the friendship moves is they don't really make any sense as friendship. Most of them are just, instead of murdering you, I'm going to do something silly. Usually something self-serving. Like in some of the original games, like juggling or skipping rope. I think the friendships that really worked as friendships were like Johnny Cage's signing an autograph and giving it to the character. You know, that makes sense as a friendship. I think Katana her old one was like giving someone a cake. Even something like Liu Kang, is it? No, not Liu Kang. The guy with the razor hat. Shoot. I'm not thinking of his name. The guy with the razor hat pulls a bunny out of his hat. You know, I'm putting on a magic show for you instead of ripping your head off. That makes sense. But most of them, especially the new ones, don't make any damn sense as friendship. Kung Lao. Thank you. MJ Breeze. Tritsu says, Chugga Conroy did a Let's Play of it and mentioned he'd spent nearly 1,000 hours on it. Good God. Well, you could describe... When you say... See, I'm trying to quickly workshop a joke in my head because I don't have this prepared. One joke I've always made about the original Metal Gear Solid is the game it's a short game. It's only 6 hours long. 3 hours if you remove the cutscenes and codex conversations. You could make a similar joke about Xenoblade Chronicles and say it's a 100-hour game, or 2 hours if you don't do any of the side quests. So, a lot of side quests in that game. Wondering because I was watching a bunch of stuff on Operation Rainfall recently and come across that legendary video I made 8 years ago about Nintendo giving you my money. Yeah, luckily all of the Rainfall games actually did come out here, and I have played them all. I didn't finish Xenoblade Chronicles, but I did finish the other two. And I quite enjoyed Pandora's Tower. I thought that was a really fun game. And honestly, I actually like the last story better than Xenoblade Chronicles. Which, again, they're both fantastic games. I just personally prefer the way Xenoblade Chronicles, Last Story works. Especially with its its rotating cast of characters, and its large party of characters. How it handles those, and its combat system. Both great games, though. And I look forward to actually finishing Xenoblade Chronicles at some point down the road when I get the definitive edition. Anyway, what I was saying about the friendship moves is a lot of the new ones are just damn hilarious. You have Scorpion saying, get over here, and he pulls a big teddy bear, and he just hugs and cuddles this fuzzy teddy bear. It's adorable. And you have Katana playing patty cake with her sister Melina, and that's adorable. And I'm thinking, that's great, but it really has nothing to do with making a friendship between you, the player, and the person you just beat in a fight. You know? It's still adorable. I still like it. It's still really funny. I mean, Spawn's is hilarious. Spawn has one where his friendship move is he's just sitting in he uses his cape as a hammock, and he just relaxes in his cape hammock and reads a trashy romance novel. That is so totally Spawn. That's great. But it has nothing to do with the character he just fought. It's still funny. I still like it. But it doesn't really make sense as friendship. Now, some of these could have been changed. Like, imagine if Scorpions, instead of "get over here" and pulling in a big fuzzy teddy bear, he, threw out the chain, hooked the opponent he just beat, yanked him to himself, and hugged that person and just, nuzzled him. And the fallen combatant is like, get off. This is awkward. That would make more sense as friendship to me and would still be hilarious. You wouldn't have the cute fluffy bear though, and oh man, that would be a tough loss, but I don't know, might thematically work better, at least how I think of friendships. And as utterly adorable and charming as it is to see Katana playing patty cake and hugging her sister, who lore-wise she's generally pretty estranged from, imagine if she did that with whichever opponent she beat. That could have worked too. Again, I'm not asking them to change that because that's kind of been how friendships have been throughout the series. Very few of them actually make any sense as friendship, which is probably why Shao Kahn's voice line is friendship. It's like, friendship? Question mark? What does that have to do with friendship? You're just skipping rope, Jax. Let's see. We need Babalities back. What's more fun to me? Rush through many different games or 100% complete less games? I'm more inclined to 100% complete less games. Otaritsu knows Xenoblade Chronicles is a 15-hour game if you remove the side quests and cutscenes. That's still pretty funny. It's 100 hours. Well, 15 if you don't do side quests. Spend well over half that time fighting the final 4 bosses. So, really, end of story is there are multiple ways you could do the friendships, but I think the thing I like most about the current crop of friendships in MK11 is these big goofy smiles that they put on almost all of the characters. I mean, seeing Cetrion and Sindel just smile these big goofy grins is hilarious. Jordan says, since NetherRealms works on Mortal Kombat and Injustice, I'd like to see another attempt at DC Universe versus Mortal Kombat. Sure. So, moving on. I was thinking about escort missions in video games earlier this week. The oft-derided portion of many games. Some games built entirely around that mechanic, like Enslaved Odyssey to the West, which I played a few weeks ago. I don't mind escort missions in and of themselves. I mind when they're done poorly, but I generally don't mind escort missions. Like, one of the most derided escortees is Ashley in Resident Evil 4, and she's always been one of my favorites. I love Ashley in Resident Evil 4 as an escort mission component. I think she's great. Because I've never had her get stuck on geometry. She always follows me. She is on your ass all the time. She is right up on you. So she never gets in your line of fire. If you 180 and point your gun, she will immediately duck, clearing your line of fire. If she does get captured, it's your fault, and she'll yell to let you know so you can go find her. She also does what you tell her. Like, you can hide her in a closet or a trash bin or something and tell her stay. She will stay. So, I get into a new area, I find the nearest trash bin, I say, Ashley, in the trash, and you stay there. I clear out the entire level from enemies, and then I go, I whistle for Ashley, and she gets out of the trash bin, and she perfectly pathfinds her way all the way over to me without an issue. Might take her a minute or so to get there, because she's on the other side of the level, but she can hear me from clear across the way, and she has no problem getting to me. She is lovely. I genuinely do not know why people have a problem with her. I mean, maybe her character, maybe her attitude, maybe her fashion sense. How many sweaters you need, Ashley? How many sweaters you need? And what's with those boots, Ashley? Seriously, who dresses you? But, Susan said, putting women in the trash bins, Andrew? Classic first date. I would actually love to do a fashion police with my sister on Ashley, because she's a really interesting case. Like, her silhouette is fine, and at first glance, just the color scheme and the outfit looks fine, but the more you look at it, you go, wait, is she wearing a sweater over her sweater? What's with those little flaps in her boots? Wait, is her belt over her shirt? Wait, what? No, that doesn't work. That's the weirdest damn thing. What material is that? So, Tritsu says they don't like her because her voice is grating. She's one of the easier escorts. Second part, she's one of the easier escort objectives I've ever worked with. Yeah, I guess if her going, Leon, just grates on your ear, sure. If her yelling for Leon is like the baby Mario cry in Yoshi's Island, yeah. I don't have a problem with it. I never found her voice grating. I really like the fact that she flat up propositions Leon at the end of the game, and Leon's like, no. I thought that was good, because I was scared there for a minute. She's like, hey, when we get home, you wanna do something incredibly gross, or what? I forget what she says, but she's very clearly propositioning Leon. I was like, oh, no, Leon, no. And he says something like, no. I'm like, oh, good, Leon. Yeah. So, lovely girl, but girl. I don't know how old. I'm sure she's 18 or something, but yeah, that's, no. Not appropriate. Strikes me as inappropriate anyway. Jordan says this is a human character, not a dog, right? That's right. Ashley's a human, not a puppy. What's that one game where you have a dog and you can you can, it's a remake of an older title, and you can command it to, it's an attack dog, you can like get it to bite on people's nuts. It's funny. I forget what game that is though. 19? She's 19? Okay. What was I talking about? Escort missions. Ico. A game I don't like. Because it's boring. And it's really the escort part of the game that I don't like. And also, I don't like the way it's presented. Basically, the biggest problem with the game for me is fighting the shadow monsters is boring. You get a stick, and you have one move, a swing. All the enemies are exactly the same. They're no fun to fight. I really just don't like the game. It's boring. Um, the Prince of Persia-esque sections where you're just navigating the environment, solving puzzles to get out of the room and into the next one, all that's fine, but whenever the shadow monsters show up, I'm like, I don't want to hit them with a 2x4 anymore. It's boring. I also don't get... I don't feel it plays well with a 12-year-old boy leading a helpless woman around by the hand. It's weird and it's infantilizing. It seems to me that it should be the other way around. Like, you'd think if anything, Yorda would be dragging a 12-year-old kid around rather than a 12-year-old kid dragging an adult around. It's just weird. I mean, that doesn't, this game sucks. No, it's just something that I'm like, I don't get it. But I didn't finish the game, so maybe that's explained. Maybe Yorda's actually 7 years old, and she got... Am I getting the names right? And she got her consciousness transferred into an adult's body. There you go. And that's why she's helpless. Although I do like in the game where you both can just take a load off if you find a chair, I think, or a bench. I always thought that was kind of funny. My point was, though, I wonder if we could make a... Now, not me, of course, because I'm not a game developer, but I wonder if we could make a game, or if anyone already has, that's an escort mission where you're the one being escorted as the player character. As the protagonist, it's your job to follow the main character around and clear their line of fire and not frustrate them to the point where they just chuck you off a building or shoot you in the face. I think there's some possibilities there. I don't know if anyone's ever tried anything like that, but I was thinking about that this week. How would a game like that go? I was thinking about it. I thought it might be kind of fun. Let's see. Tritsu says, Aiko, I've played that game also. The puzzles and navigation are alright, but the fighting sucks. Yeah. Tritsu says she's like 15, a year or two older than the boy, and she doesn't have any combat training, and the kid's a fighting genius. He's got a 2x4, and he has one attack. Also, another, just a visual thing, I think he's supposed to have horns? I thought it was a hat. I thought he was wearing a horned helmet until someone else told me, "Oh no, it's because people who have horns are discriminated against." I'm like, that's not a hat. It's a really bad design because it's genuine. I'm not just talking because of the unclear PS2 graphics. It's a bad design because it's not clear that that's not a hat. It looks like he's wearing just a little Viking helmet. So. Yeah, he has horns and a bandage around his head. Don't know what's being bandaged. Did someone hit him in the head? I mean, if you saw him without the bandage and you saw the mean guards smack him in the skull and then he had a bandage and you go, oh, okay. But again, and a lot of it has to do with the lower fidelity of the older console, but I always thought that was a hat. I'm like, oh, that's supposed to be horns? Oh, okay. Doesn't look like that at all. That didn't read, at least not to me. Maybe it's just me. Not that that matters or anything. Really, the only... It's a game that... I hear it's fairly short, so it's a game I feel like I could kind of power through just to play it. And I do like half of it, but I so don't like all of the combat in it that I got to a point where I was going like, I just don't want to play this. I have the Ico / Shadow of the Colossus bundle on PS3, and I've not played Shadow of the Colossus yet because I'm kind of afraid I'm not going to like it. Pardon me. Because it's a game that I always thought looked really boring, and everyone loves it, and I hate being that guy who doesn't like the thing that everyone else likes. I mean, the boss fights look fun, but everything else looks boring. And like, oh, it's just a string of boss fights. I'm like, oh, okay, there's games like that I like that are just, boss fights. Cuphead comes to although they put levels in that. But there are boss rush games, Mech Extermination Squad or whatever it's called. Games fine. And it's like, oh, but here's the thing: you have to get on your horse and ride to the next Titan or Colossus through an incredibly vast, incredibly empty, barren, featureless environment with nothing to do. Like, oh, that doesn't sound fun. You just hold your sword in the air and it goes, go over there. And you go over there until you get there. Maybe it works. I don't know. Everyone I know loves the game, but to me, I'm like, oh, man. It's going to be 15 good boss fights paced out with a really boring horse ride. Hope not. I'll play it someday. So, Sony had a new State of Play this week for covering The Last of Us Part 2. And it still looks like the inciting incident is going to be the murder of Ellie's girlfriend, as I think everyone predicted the moment she was introduced 2 or 3 years ago. They're like, oh, yeah, she gets killed and Ellie goes out on revenge. I hope that's not the case, because that's been done to death, and it's obvious and boring, and also a really unfortunate pattern in narratives. So hopefully there's something else. Like, the first game sets up, at least I thought was setting up, what was going to be a big conflict between her and Joel. That's his name, right? The adult dude. Because, spoilers for an older game, he lies to her. It doesn't really matter. It's a big lie. It's a pretty consequential lie. And it wasn't his call to make, but he made it without her. It was her call. He decided not to make... Well, she was unconscious, so she wasn't really given the choice. No one gave her the choice. But he lied to her about it anyway. And you'd think that that would be the impetus for whatever the plot of the sequel would be, but the advertising so far doesn't look like that's the case. It looks like someone killed my girlfriend and I'm going to kill them all now. That's what it looks like. Hope not, but that's what it looks like. What was I talking about? Oh, The Last of Us Part 2. So, one thing that struck me, it wasn't in the State of Play, it was in a behind-the-scenes video that was released the week before, is it was mentioned that you cannot get enough upgrade points in a single playthrough to completely upgrade your character. I don't like that. That frustrates me. Probably because I'm the type of gamer who rarely, if ever, replays a game. Like, I don't do New Game Plus unless there's actually new content. Especially narrative games where generally you're expected to just play through the whole story again. I'm not going to do that. Now, the original Last of Us did have chapter select, so you knew what chapters the things you missed were in, so that helped narrow it down a bit. But I'm not going to play through the game 2 or 3 times to fully upgrade my character, so that's just there's nothing wrong with doing a game that way. That's just not how I prefer my games. By the end of the game, if I played it right, I should be able to get everything in one playthrough, because I don't want to play the game more than once, because I've only got a finite amount of existence, so I don't want to spend too much of it on the same redoing the same thing over and over. It's why I rarely reread books or replay video games, because they take a lot of time. I don't often rewatch movies, but I will do that more frequently than I will replay games or reread books, because movies generally only take an hour and a half or 2 hours. Books, depending on how long they are and how fast you read, 10 to 20 hours. Video games, many of them even longer. I don't want to spend the fraction of my life it takes to redo that, generally. So, let's see. Suzanne says, I think it would have to end with the moral dilemma of do you kill yourself for humanity or keep your life. I think Ellie facing those choices at the end and cutting off before she makes the choice would be a good ending. Well, what makes sense with it, it does not surprise me that in the world established by the game, okay, so full spoilers, Ellie is not invincible. She's immune to the plague. So there's a group of people that are like, okay, if we kill her and harvest her brain, we might be able to make a antidote, or at least a vaccine, for the virus, or the plague, or whatever it is. But she definitely gonna die. No way around that. We're removing her brain. She's dead. They capture her and tie her to a table, and they're at least unless I'm remembering it wrong, they capture her and they're like, we're just going to take her brain out. We're not giving her the choice in this. Joel doesn't even really consider, well, did you, at least if my memory's right, I don't think he's like, hey, let's wake her up and see what she wants to do. He's just like, nah, I'm just going to kill all of you and take her home, and then lie to her. And he says, oh, yeah, they have plenty of people like you, so they didn't need you, and there's no cure. And while I agree that morally, you can't just murder somebody on the off chance that they'll be the cure, could ask them, because there are people on Earth who'd be like, give my life for a chance to save humanity? Sure. I don't really like it here anyway. You people all suck. And there's monsters. And my last girlfriend got et. And my future girlfriend's probably going to get killed. To, in order to prompt me, the protagonist, into action. Which I'm getting kind of sick of. So, yeah, go ahead and scoop out chunks of my brain. Or maybe I could just hang around with you guys, and maybe you could keep researching and figure out a way to do it without, removing my entire brain. Maybe suck out some brain juice, or do a little scrape. See if you can do something with just a piece instead of the whole skit and caboodle. I didn't really care for The Last of Us. I didn't find it unenjoyable. I liked it okay. I think it has a really weak opening. I think the first 3 hours of the game are really rough. Just really boring. It picks up after a while, though. The last 15 hours, whatever it is, enjoyable. I liked scavenging around and finding stuff and crafting items and throwing rocks at people, and it's fun. Really, the biggest problem I had with the game was the game world. I just didn't really like any of the characters, which is not to say they were poorly written or poorly performed. Not at all. I just don't like anybody. They're all terrible people. Ellie got a little bit of slack because she's young and she's got really bad role models, but just pretty much everyone in the game is just an awful person. And you're a bunch of awful people conflicting with a bunch of other awful people, and it's like, everyone's just awful. You can all get et by monsters. It's just kind of unpleasant, and I think that's kind of the point. But it's still unpleasant, and so I didn't enjoy it as much as I might have otherwise. Still enjoyed a lot about it. It's a technically very impressive game. There's a lot of mechanics that I think work really, really well. I think the level design is mostly very good. I think the combat system works quite well. I like the scrounging and crafting elements. I think it's a well put together game. It was just really it's just the people in the game. I've talked about this before, but I really don't like stories where everyone just sucks. Like, there's some type of, aliens invade the Earth and are trying to murder us all, but we just are such jerks to each other that, the aliens are like sitting back and it's like, do we even have to do anything? They're just going to kill each other because they're all awful. There's just so many awful people in the world, really, that I'd rather escape into a world where, not everybody is awful. That's one of the nice things about the new She-Ra, I suppose, is even though there are bad guys in She-Ra, almost all of them are completely redeemable and actually do get redeemed. And it's just a really pleasant world, where people have flaws, but none of them are like, bigotry. It's just really pleasant to escape into a world like that. So buttons. And that's all I have to say. Yes. Any questions? Because we're approaching 8 o'clock. Okay. So, watch my videos. I'm still doing the Gem series, and did a little Perfect Dark skit yesterday. Hey, scripted video. It's short, but there you go. I think it's funny. My sister was talking to me the other day, and she says, Andrew, when you're editing do you watch your own videos? I'm like, well, I edit it, so I have to watch it a lot, just to make sure I didn't screw up the editing. But what she was asking is, do you make yourself laugh? And conceited or vainglorious as it may be, yeah, I think I'm pretty funny, because I edit my stuff and I actually genuinely laugh at it. So all that stuff is there. What else? Oh, Sunday stream tomorrow. Tomorrow we will be playing Among the Sleep, which is a game where you play a toddler with a haunted teddy bear. And I have no idea. I don't know, but you play a toddler with Chucky. I don't know if your haunted teddy bear is like going to murder your mom or something, or I have no idea. Well, let's find out together tomorrow at noon Pacific Standard Time. I do know that controllers don't work for the game. Actually, I do know that controllers only work in the menu, which is weird. Like, the controller works perfectly for menus, but doesn't work to actually control the game, which seems like the developers would have done that on purpose, just to be jerks. So it's a game I'm going to have to play with mouse and keyboard. I'll have to. So it may not be a 3-hour stream. It may be shorter, because I don't know how long I can play a game with mouse and keyboard, because I really hate doing that. It's not comfortable to me. But it's a fairly simple game. It's mostly walk and look, and generally like one interact button. So it's pretty much mouse and WASD with maybe some of the space bar. So I can handle it. I'm a big boy. I can play PC games. So I hope to see you all noon tomorrow Pacific Standard Time. Have a good weekend, everyone. Good night.